Welcome to Contractor Cuts, where we cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing a successful contracting company.
Welcome back to Contractor Cuts. My name is Clark Turner.
I'm Jared Flo.
Thank you for joining us again this week. So today we are talking about the 6 things that will kill you in this industry. We've experienced a lot of them ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
We've walked down hand in hand with guys that were mentoring and coaching and helping and guiding down the trail where they're in some of these things. And so first and foremost, we want to put life jackets on so we don't die, and then we can grow the company.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to cover today are the 6 things that we have identified as most likely to kill you, to kill your company. And it might not shut your company down.
Right.
It might just kill your will to work, your will to live. It might push you to burn out. And,
Some of these can be immediate, but most of them are a slow burn to
That's right.
be burned out.
That's right. So let's start at the top. These are in no particular order, but these are 6 things that we think you probably have felt a portion of, a little bit of, that you need to be aware of. And at the end, we're going to summarize what to do differently.
Right.
Like, how do we change this? How do we step out of any of these? If you're feeling any of this stuff, how do you change that? So the first thing, island mentality. We see a lot of time with guys that they are in an island mentality. It's load the wagon, I'll haul it. It's me. I got this. I'm going to handle it. Everything has to run through me. Some of it has to do with it starts out as almost an ego / if I don't do it,
need anybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
Or if I don't do it, it's not going to be done right. And it starts there in this industry of kind of an egotistical stance or a protective stance. If I don't do this, it's going to get ruined.
Well, and I think if you go back to one of our previous podcasts, I think this is the byproduct of the mentality of there's nobody out there that can work.
Yeah.
There's nobody out there that's any good. There's nobody that wants to. Nobody works as hard as me. I can't find anybody that works like I do. I think this ends up is the byproduct of that mentality.
And it starts that way. It starts with no one can do it. I'm just going to grind and figure this out. I don't need help. I'm going to figure this out. I don't want coaching. I'm going to figure this. I'm just going to grind and get it done.
Yeah.
And no one else can do it but me. That mentality turns into, I am on an island, lonely, don't know what I'm doing. I might know what I'm doing in construction, but what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? It's almost like a midlife crisis that we see people come to, which is that burnout stage, because they're on an island. They don't know up from down, right from wrong, what's happening sometimes. And it's this very lonely spot as entrepreneurs and business owners when we're a one-man show that we get to that's like, gosh, I just need someone to ask one question to. I need someone to tell me that it's okay that this is happening.
Yeah.
Because it might not be okay. I need to know if it is or not. Right. And so that in and of itself, now we're not pushing coaching around this, but coaching really helps.
Yeah.
That's what we do for guys is say, hey, we pull the boat up and say, yeah, you're on this island, but let us guide you off of it. Let's talk through how do we grow and give you support and give you those answers. Whether you're coming into our coaching program or not, find somebody to help you. Find someone to talk to about this. I know therapy is a 4-letter word in this industry. That's a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
But all that being said, the island mentality is somewhere that guys get clicked into and kind of built into their company and their systems and how they operate, and it's so hard to get out of.
Well, and I think a part of the reason why that is difficult is what you want, what you really truly desire is somebody to talk to who understands, right? And so maybe it's your wife, but your wife only understands to a certain extent. Your wife doesn't understand the minutia of what this business is and how difficult it is and the crew's not showing up. And she doesn't understand it to that intimate of a level. The people that do, that you know in your area, are your competition.
Yeah.
Right. So it makes it really, really difficult to find somebody who knows what I'm going through that I can just piss and moan to, ask a question, right? And so that's where getting a mentor who's further down the road, who's been there, done that, and maybe just in a mentor space, and that's a great person. A therapist is a great person because they're trained in that type of stuff, but also, and again, not trying to push coaching, but that's when I talk to people about that specific thing, when they're inquiring about the coaching, I can hear them go like, oh, that sounds awesome. Just to have somebody that I can pop questions and bounce questions off of. Yeah. That sounds great.
That's the best part of our.
It feels like I'm on an island.
Best part of our annual retreat that we do every year in January is like you get together with guys that are going through the same systems and processes that you are, same struggles that you are, same coaching program that you are, to where we're all on the same path together. And it is rising tides raise all ships on those retreats where we're helping each other out and talking, but you're not on an island anymore. Now, even if you've got employees, you still can feel. I've felt this plenty of times in the past where we might have 10 people on staff, but I can't let my guard down to 10 people. I can't let them know that I'm questioning if this company is going to exist next year, right? You can't do that with employees because there's a certain part of leadership and growth that you have to show that we're going in the right direction, even if you're questioning it internally.
But also at the same time, there's no way for them to understand. They can't understand. But you do have a friend who is in a similar business, but not competitor, that is in the same spot where you guys meet on a semi-regular basis just to piss and moan and talk because he understands. Right?
Now, again, this is the only one I think on our list that's really saying why coaching is so important. This isn't a full list of stuff self-promoting us, but this is one that we see that leads quickest to burnout. Is this island mentality of, I'm just so lost and alone in what I'm doing, and it really spirals downward quickly when you get to that spot of the burnout. Right. So that will kill you. That island mentality will absolutely hurt you. The next, loans, debts, expenses that increase when revenue increases.
Yep.
So this is something that we've experienced this ourselves in our construction company. This is one of the biggest things that we've gone through that helped us learn how not to do it. And we've done it the wrong way so many times. But loans and debts and expenses increasing as our revenue increases.
Yeah.
Now, it's going to happen. Expenses have to increase. If you're growing a business, if I'm going from 4 million to 6 million this year, I have to hire employees. Yeah. We're going to have to get a larger office. I'm going to have to get, So expenses have to grow with revenue. The problem is when I grow my expenses, when I say expenses, I'm including debts, right? I'm taking on loans. I've got maybe I do a HELOC or I get some sort of an SBA loan.
Or some people go buy a truck.
Or you get a truck, and so you got a loan for that, and that's $900 a month. And then you've got these increased expenses that are justified because I got the revenue coming in now. And so I go from 2 million to 4 million, 4 million to 5 million, 5 million to 6 million. And when I'm doing that, my outgoing money is increasing and increasing. And one thing that guys don't realize until they go through our coaching course is the more revenue you do, the smaller your profit is. Right. When I'm a one-man show, I have really large profit. And so what we want to do with getting you set up that way is, as you grow, understand by the time you get to $10 million a year in revenue, your absolute profit at 6 to 7 to 8% is a really good number. Right. And so that's something that people don't understand is the expensive management, where one guy does 100% of the work, two guys will increase by about 50%. So now I'm doing about 150, not doubling the amount of work I'm doing. And so understanding that side of it before you make decisions is the most important thing, because you could get and why it's all important and where this falls apart is I went from 2 to 4 to 5 to 7 million, and my expenses have increased significantly as I'm doing that. I took on some loans because to get to 10 million, I need to buy this piece of equipment. And so I take on those loans, and all of a sudden there's a downturn in the economy. I lose a customer that's sending me a lot of business. Maybe I'm, whatever it is, and I dip from 7 million down to 5 million the next year. And I have this dip. but my expenses are maxing out profits at 7 million. And so all of a sudden I'm missing $150,000 of profit this year because I had the 7 million level expenses that I couldn't get out of that don't flex.
Right.
But I only am doing 5 million in revenue. And I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out there, but the most important thing is employees, I can fire them if I have to. Loans, debts aren't fireable.
Nope.
Though they're bankruptable, and that's about it. And so at that point, when you get your monthly servicing of debts at $10,000 a month, that works when I'm doing 10 million a year.
Right.
But then I drop down and have this huge issue, and I lose a couple employees and mess up some clients, and now my revenue drops down to 5 million. I can't pay those debts. We're out of business, right? And so that's something that will kill you. So understanding this is honestly one of the biggest ones, where understanding what revenue I should expect and what expenses should and shouldn't grow with it, and what's risk and what's not a good risk is the most important.
A way to look at that is what expenses that are going to increase as I bring on employees, as I take on more work, as I'm doing what expenses are going to increase. But if my work decreases, those can or naturally will decrease, right? Insurance. When I hire more employees, my insurance is going to go up. If I lose 3 or 4 employees, my insurance can go down, right? So that's going to fluctuate with the size of the business. Office, right? I'm spending $9,000 a month for an office because I have all these different employees. If things change and I have to go down to 3 employees, I can decrease that amount of money.
Unless I signed on for 5 years.
Signed on for 5 years, which is technically some kind of loan or a debt. When it comes to taking on a loan, it's just like you said, it doesn't matter how much work you're doing. If you go from 10 million to 1 million, you still owe $5,000 a month on that loan. Period. Right. And so, you think $1 million a year, if I'm doing $1 million a year at 20% profit, that's $200,000. If I've got a $5,000 a month payment, that's $60,000 of my $200 that I'm bringing in. Right. So it's just, those are things just to be careful, and they can very easily tank your company with and everybody that's listening to this has experienced fluctuation in your business that had nothing to do with you. It's just the economy. It's the way things are going. It's whatever. Everybody's experienced completely out of your control. So that's just a place that you need to be very, very cautious with. One of the things that we did to make sure that we were in a good spot, no matter how much debt we had, our accounts receivable was that or then some. That was where we always tried to keep things balanced, so that if we today had to shut things down, I know that I've got enough money coming in to pay everything off. That's a great space for balance.
And we'll cover this at the end as to what you need to do to set yourself up to not die to these things.
Right.
But with what you just said, you don't know how much you can borrow unless you know your accounts receivable.
Right.
If you ask most guys, was your accounts receivable? What does that mean?
What is that?
Right. And so the organization of finances and understanding your numbers before making decisions, as opposed to making decisions because the bank account says I got 80 grand in it, so I'm doing good.
Right.
All right. Next, number 3, failed recruitment, failed hires of staff and crews, and failed leadership. Those are all the same thing. And so if you go back to last week's podcast, we dive deep into this about how to not fail at making these hires, how to not blame the workers, but you are the leader in hiring these people and guiding them and holding them accountable and supporting them. And so when you fail at that, if you hire the wrong person, even if you are a really good leader and you think you hire the right person and they're the wrong person, they're going to cost you 6 figures in this industry. If I hire the wrong person, it is a 6-figure mistake. So that is a huge thing that will bring you down. If you have if you don't take hiring seriously, if you don't do it the right way, even when you do those 2 things, you might miss. And so how do we minimize the risk on those new hires, on the crews, on that sort of thing? Of people that I'm bringing in, that I'm depending on. How do I manage them? How do I hold them accountable? If you're missing on those things, it could kill you and your company very quickly.
Well, and just a standard on that, to find out whether a hire is going to work or not, it's about 6 months to really find out before you're like, oh crap, I got to fire this person.
It can come earlier than that.
It can come earlier than that, but most of the time, because you don't want to pull the trigger on letting somebody go that you just hired.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it is somewhere in that 3 to 6 month marker in there before you're like, crap, this isn't going to work.
And that's really for management, right? If I'm hiring an HVAC tech, by day 2, I know that he's not good at what he's doing. But when we're talking about like a project manager in a general contracting company, we don't know until the end of the jobs that he's running half the time if he's doing well, unless you have the controls and dashboards like our software to see, to check, and weekly inspect. That's where we go from 6 months out down to 1 month out and be like, oh, in the first month, this guy is not getting it. So what do we need to do to fix that in the second month? And if it's not there by the end of the second month, we're cutting them, right? And so some of that business plan that we're going to talk about next is how we curb that. But you're right. It's one of those things that I got to burn through cash before I even know that, even if I'm doing it the right way.
Well, and doing this enough times in a row will kill your business.
Yep.
It just will.
Yep. All right, number 4, being change averse. We talked about this one a lot. We had it as tech adverse, but it's really change averse. You know, people who won't do softwares, that don't do tech, that the yellow pad is good enough for me. It's been good for the last 20 years. It'll be good for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Great. You're going to be behind the times. You're going to have inefficiency with your times. You're going to have unprofessionalism of what's expected from customers these days.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a systematic way to reference things in the future to be able to grow. Don't be stuck in the past because it's worked before. That doesn't mean it's going to work in the future. Ask that to the people that built horse buggies, right? If they stuck and said, I'm only going to keep doing this, I'm not going to change over, these cars are a fad, you will go out of business very quickly. Technology, softwares, ProStruct 360 as a software, that is a tool to allow you to organize and structure your company, to hold your employees accountable, to see your numbers, to see what's positive and negative on a job. It is a dashboard and an available way to know the health of your company on a daily basis.
Right.
Yellow pads can't get you that.
Yeah.
I can't reference when a customer calls from 5 months ago, I can't reference on a yellow pad that I'm on my 4th one through by now what the conversation was, notes I took, that sort of thing. You might have a filing system. Great. How are you going to ensure it? How are you going to be able to access it? And even if you can find those notes, is it taking an hour to hunt it down? If you're in software, in literally 2 seconds, you search it and it's there and it's in front of you. So all that being said, being adverse to change, stuck in your ways because it's working now that way, is something that will end up killing you.
Yeah, the mentality of, well, the last 15 years, it's worked this way, so I'm going to keep doing it for the next 15. The reality is, in the society that we live in, there's a ton of tech. There's a ton of opportunities of using the technology that is out there to be bigger, better, faster than what you are.
Yeah.
The new generation of contractors that are coming up are all over it.
Yeah.
And so what you think the last 15 was like, the next 15 is not going to be the same.
That's right. And that affects hiring employees, because an employee comes into an inefficient company that's using yellow pads.
Yeah.
It's like, this is, what am I doing here? This is going nowhere. All right. Number 5, the victim mentality and lack of ownership. When we see this in a contractor, when they come into our coaching program, we try to identify it before they start, because that's someone we don't want to work with.
Right.
Because they are always the victim. They lack the ownership. And a lot of times it comes across as almost a cockiness or a passive aggressive, or something like, well, that's just not me. That's just not how I do things. That's just not this. You're not owning up to the flaws. You're not looking at what's going on, because the whole key to this, and really what we could say the victim mentality and lack of ownership, is a lack of self-understanding. The lack to be able to look inside and say, oh, you know what? That's a problem. I need to fix it. Because if I can't see the problem, I can't fix the problem.
Yeah.
And so when we talk to a guy and say, hey, man, it seems like you're kind of verbally abusive to your employees. Well, that's, they get what they deserve. That guy is an idiot. And so if I don't keep him in line, but okay, great. So what you're doing is causing him to be an idiot. He doesn't care to work for you. You are a paycheck for him. Stop yelling at the guy and start building him into an employee that's part of your right. And so we go down that road, But it's the well, I just can't, and they're doing this to me, and I'm trying my hardest. I'm the one that works the hardest around here. Yeah, you're the freaking owner. When the company sells for $20 million, are you going to share that with them?
Right.
Like that's you are the victim because you've put yourself in this spot. Like, stop victimizing yourself. It is happening to you because you're the one that hired them and you're the one not managing them.
Yeah.
So yes, you are the one getting hurt by it.
Yeah.
So sorry, that's a hot button for me if I'm running hard.
There's a book out there called Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
And it's the idea and mentality that if you are in the lead, if you are the head, if you are the one in charge, doesn't matter what level, if you have people that you're in charge of, you have to own every aspect of it. Doesn't matter if the crew didn't show up on time.
Yeah.
You are in charge of that. You are responsible for that.
Yeah.
Even if you're in the right and say, I told the guy to be there at 8 and he still didn't show up at 8, it's still your fault.
Yeah. A great example, we've used a similar example in past podcasts. I'm going to stop saying that because we do it all the time. But a great example of this is we experienced this on our last retreat. We were at a casino. We paid for a reserved spot in the sports book where we all kind of hung out and gathered. There was supposed to be a waitress that was assigned to our section to, for drinks and food, whatever we needed. And they were short on staff. And so the waitress that was supposed to be in our section was servicing everybody. And so we saw her once every 30 to 40 minutes.
If that.
Yeah. If that. Yeah. And so everyone was getting irritated, like, why are we doing blah, blah, blah. And the problem was, she showed up and she was upset because she had to service everybody and she couldn't, she was mad because she was being overworked.
She had been done wrong.
Yeah. And so our experience was when she did show up, she was giving us attitude and was very unfriendly to us because of her experience, right?
Yeah.
If her boss comes over, there's two things he can do. He can say, she's terrible, she's this, she's that. I don't care. The company that we hired, the people that we were paying, the casino that we were in, she represents them. Right. And so her boss also represents them. So they're all in the wrong in our heads, right? When you have a server that does that, if you go to a restaurant and the server's bad, that restaurant's bad. Right. That person is representing. So you can't, if a crew yells at a customer, you can't, that's you. That's your company yelling at a customer. They're representing you out there. And so you have to understand that you have to own that and not just brush it off like, that's his problem. He's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. No, it's your problem. You hired them. They're representing you, and you have to understand those people represent you. You own every issue that happens.
Right.
Even if it's not your fault, it's your fault. If you're the boss, it's always your fault. You hired them. That was your fault. You didn't tell them what they needed to do. That was your fault. You didn't inspect. You didn't have an accountability meeting. Those are all your faults. They might have made a mistake on the job site. It doesn't matter. The problem happened before that mistake happened.
Yeah.
The problem was your accountability, what you put on them, what you expect out of them, and what you're telling them to do. That's where the issues start.
Well, and the interesting thing is that's the way the way that you view yourself is like, I did everything right.
Yep.
I did this, I did that, I did that. It's not me, it's that person. But the person that you are servicing only sees it one way.
Yeah.
You're the guy that I hired to get this done. I don't care what tools you used. I don't care what crews you've got. I hired you, and this is subpar.
That's right.
You're at fault. It doesn't matter what you think if it's that guy's fault.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many of our employees have gone back to clients and been like, "I'm so sorry, not my fault. This crew, that crew, this thing," and pointing at all the other problems that just puts you in a bad light with your clients. Right? So,
no, that's right. Number 7, the last one, which is kind of, we did put this one last on purpose.
Yeah.
Sustained reactive operations. Yeah. Now, everything above this is usually caused by sustained reactive operations. The number one problem we see with guys who are failing in their business, and not that guys that fail in their business are the only ones that come to us. Teaming up with successful companies is where we're most successful. Yeah. But we've seen across the spectrum from very successful to not very successful. And the not very successful ones are in a sustained reactive operations in their company. And what that means is we all have moments in our company, a month, a week, a couple days moment where everything catches on fire.
Yep.
we're going to have those times where we got to be reactive. Everything's on fire. Babe, I'm not coming home tonight until I get all this stuff done. Go ahead and have dinner without me. We've all had those conversations.
Yeah.
It's the sustained being in that place forever, right? Every day is a fire drill. Every day is reactive to whatever is the issues.
Yeah.
And when we say, listen, you've got to get proactive, they say, well, I don't have time. I've got so much to deal with. I understand. That's why we start. Let us coach you through that, because we have to separate the reactive stuff and the proactive stuff. And when we start giving an inch to the proactive, it turns into a foot, then it turns into a yard, then it turns into a mile.
Yeah.
And it's taking those steps to be proactive that will start putting out the next fires. So in a month, those fires aren't popping up.
Yeah.
So it's separating those out. But the thing that kills you is if you're in that sustained reactive operation where I'm always reacting, I'm living in that spot, you are never growing or getting forward. You're always pissing people off and living in the past and putting out those fires. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Your company will die. Your mental fortitude is going to die. It is not sustainable to live there.
Well, and you cannot get on top of the things that you are behind on, all the reactive things that are coming at you. You cannot get on top of those and get in front of them until you've taken time to work proactively.
That's right.
It takes proactive work to get in front of the reactive things that are happening. And so if you're not doing that, if you don't have the space to do that, you will forever be in that hamster wheel. And that's what leads you to the place where you've gone for an entire year and you're at the same place you were last year.
Yeah.
Because you're firefighting, you're managing the problems, what feels like earning money, but you're never able to get in front of that stuff. And then it eventually leads to the place of burnout.
Yeah.
Where like, I just can't freaking do this anymore.
So those are our top 6. Those are the things that we think really hurt, that we see when companies are going down or being harmed or people are getting burnt out. It's often these 6 things. Now, there's outliers or other things that happen that you might be struggling with. I get it. Those things happen. All of these have their own individual solutions, but what we found, the common core issue across the board on these and other ones, is something that in reality people don't realize or don't see, or they feel it. And when we say it, they're like, bingo.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to admit it.
Yeah.
We come into these companies, start companies, run our own thing, start running a construction business because we're entrepreneurs and we're good at execution. I worked for a trim company all through college, and now I'm really good at running trim. I'm going to start my own trim company and start hitting up builders and getting. That's great. You're probably great at putting trim in. You're probably a hustler. You probably execute really well. That doesn't mean you're going to be a successful company.
I'm good at sales and I'm good at closing and getting business done.
I land 99% of my bids. I'm really good at this. I've got some good crews. All that's great. You need that. You need the execution, the operation side of being able to do that stuff.
Yeah.
What we see so many guys in this industry missing is the business side, the business mind, the CEO. How do I create and build a business like an executive?
Yeah.
And now people think they are. People put CEO on their business card all the time. That doesn't mean you're going and putting in the effort on building a business. Right. And so that's what we talk about when we're coaching guys is, I'm not going to teach you how to space studs. I'm not going to teach you what type of insulation is called for and what climates and like that stuff. You need to know. You need to know how to operate a company and execute the deliverables in terms of that product that you're delivering. Right. What we help with is the customer service, the operational building that grows and duplicates to where we're putting together the business mind behind it. It's getting an MBA in construction business building. And that's what a lot of guys are missing. Now, there's some guys that already have that. They just haven't flexed that muscle, right? Because I'm running and gunning, I'm getting things done. To say that guys are missing that across the board is not because they're idiots, they don't know it. It's because A, it's the secondary thing because that doesn't make you money today. Right. Or B, I just haven't flexed that muscle. I've never needed to. I came out of high school, I started a job, or I came out of college and started a job, and I worked for someone. So I didn't know the business side. I didn't know how to do it. And so I'm 10, 15, 20 years into my career, and I am a master at the execution side. And it's so difficult for those guys to start kindergarten on the business side. Business 101, I got to grow and learn that. Now you've gotten some experience. You've You've
Sure.
put
Yeah.
together some stuff, but at the same time, there's so much that you're not doing on the business side. That's the proactive stuff that gets rid of all of 7 of these things.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that,
Well, and growth of your business is not revenue.
yeah,
Is not applying more effort.
yeah, that's the result.
That's the result,
Yeah.
right? Growth in your business is actually moving forward towards goals and target endpoints.
Yeah.
Here's where I want to take the business, and so I'm going to make specific strategic moves going and heading towards that direction.
Yeah.
And to do that, it requires business executed skills
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
If Jared and I are both building a house, and his goal was to have a completed house, and my goal is to have a completed house, and what he does is, okay, let's build the house, and he just starts building it. What I do is say, all right, I'm going to get my architect, I'm going to get with my engineer, I'm going to start talking with my concrete guys, we're going to have this land, we're going to lay it out, I plan it out, I've got my steps for my foundation, at the end of the job, when I've done all of the steps to build a house the right way, where I've proactively laid out step by step how to get that house built,
Yeah.
and then execute it, and I run it that way, who's going to have a better house?
Right.
I'm going to have a house that's going to last a long, long time, that's structurally sound, built well, that people want to buy or live in. Jared's going to have a shack because he just started building it. I just got to run. I got to build a house. I got to be able to sell it.
Or we end up with a relatively similar product.
Yeah.
But to get mine to the completion line, it about killed me.
Yeah.
The stress of like, I'm in the middle of the foundation pouring, and then I realize, crap, I got to get this guy called. I got to find somebody to do this thing. And it's that like urgency burning, in that reactionary spot.
Forgot to pull my permits. I forgot to do, and it takes twice as long.
The stress level is unsustainable long term.
So again, this is not a condemnation on contractors who aren't growing or aren't building the company the right way. It is more of open your eyes. You have 2 hats as a business owner. You have the executionable side, and then you have the business side. And so when you're getting started, you're only wearing one hat.
Yeah.
And the hard part is people think you got to take that hat off and put the other hat on. No, it's a slow burn into the other way. But we have to take those steps to build a structured company that can duplicate and run without you. Because when you take the execution hat off, the execution stops unless you have it built with the business to where it continues.
That's right.
And that's what's going to make you 80 years old still swinging a hammer, because all I do is wear that execution hat. So we try to get you to understand we've got a path on how to quickly and easily with training wheels get the business structure in place with your processes and your procedures, and how do we hire and how do we fire and how do we invoice and why do we do it this way and how do we build our numbers around profitability. All of that stuff you can learn if you're putting that effort in. It takes 8 to 10 years to get really good wearing that hat.
Yep.
We can fast forward that. It's 18 months. You're going to be where you would have been 8 years from now.
Right.
If we give you those tools and the ability to do that and build it on your own, where we're walking hand in hand beside you, guiding you. So we'd love to partner with you. Like I said, we're not trying to push our coaching, but at the same time, we love to do it.
It's there and it's helpful.
Yeah, it's a great spot to get out of these 6 things to start growing in that direction. If you're not in our coaching, just come to the retreat. Come to a boot camp. Get started on investing your time and growing and building the business side of your company to where as you year over year, we're adding on blocks to build it up to something that's duplicatable, sellable, passable to your children, whatever it looks like. Let's get you to that spot.
Yep. Get over your pride.
Yep.
And say, you know what? I'm not going to be prideful about this. Be honest with yourself and say, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm going to invest in myself by saying I'm going to learn from other people.
That's right. If you want to talk to Jared or myself, go to ProStruck360.com, hit the contact us. You will get one of Jared or me on the phone. You can go on there and schedule a meeting with Jared directly on our website. We don't have a call center that you're going to be talking to that's trying to sell you stuff. We assess every single person ourselves. It is a boutique operation, as people call it. It is a small operation to where we handpick who we want to work with, the people that we can invest in, the people that they can grow. And so please reach out to us. Don't be scared to ask for help, or at least just hear what we can and can't do and kind of what a game plan would be for your company going into the future with us. So,
right. Right.
ProShock360.com. Check it out, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
See you then.
Bye.